Hi, my name is Jan Van De Ven, and I'm running for the European Parliament and the Ireland South constituency. Today we're with the Veterans for Peace, and we're with Tarak, Ed, and Ken. And the three of them have just had an action out at Shannon, which resulted in Tarak and Ken being arrested. So would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, just to, I suppose, thank you first of all for agreeing to meet us. We are in the process of hopefully meeting as many of the European Parliament candidates as possible to get their views on two particular issues. One, Irish neutrality, and secondly, the Irish involvement and the United States wars of aggression in the Middle East. And clearly we are quite opposed to these wars. We are a peace group, and we also want to reaffirm and restore Irish neutrality insofar as that is possible.
Okay. So you're concerned about Irish neutrality, and what I've been hearing is that the United States is sending troops to foreign wars, and they're using Shannon Airport as a base
yes, and
to refuel.
And has been doing since 2001 in particular. And in these wars, well in excess of 2 million people have been killed, and it has caused the deaths of probably up to 1 million children. And Ireland is complicit very directly by virtue of US troops and military cargo being transported through Shannon Airport.
And I would like to say something. These are not only wars, these are wars of aggression. These are illegal wars of aggression that the US has been waging. These are war crimes. These are crimes against humanity that Ireland is now complicit in being a part of. So it's not just wars. It's not just wars like World War II was a war. These are illegal wars of aggression, and we're very opposed to that. And we're opposed to Ireland permitting these troops to come, munitions, and even prisoners to come through Shannon. We think it's wrong. It's wrong for the Irish,
Right.
and it's wrong for us, and it's wrong for the entire world.
Well, how do you know that? Because I'd imagine that these flights are rather secretive. So how do you know what's actually on these flights, or how do you know what kind of cargo they're carrying?
Well, in fact, they're not at all secretive. They're very openly landing at Shannon Airport. You have a combination of civilian flights on contract to the US military carrying troops, and very obvious military planes in military paint. So from that point of view, it's blatant abuse of Irish neutrality. We don't know exactly what's on the planes, although the Irish government has admitted that all the troops, and that is now over 3 million troops passed through Shannon Airport, carry with them both an assault rifle and a pistol and ammunition for these weapons through Shannon Airport in gross breach of international laws and neutrality. So in fact it's anything but secretive, even though it can be difficult for us to expose, because even the media are involved in the complicity in failing to properly address the abuses that are going on.
So if there's extreme loss of life as a cause of these flights, and Ireland being a neutral country, why do you think that the government is not doing more to stop them or to reroute the flights and not be a part of it?
That's probably a six-mark question, or
the $1 million question.
A $1 million question. First of all, there is no need for the US military to use Shannon Airport. They can fly from the US all the way to the Middle East without refueling, in fact, on the bigger planes. And even on the smaller planes, they have hundreds of US bases in NATO countries, and NATO bases particularly in the UK. So there is no military advantage, in fact, in the US using it. Our understanding is that the US wants Ireland to be complicit as a neutral country in its war crimes in the Middle East. And the Irish government, for whatever reason we don't fully understand, but they may have been blackmailed or some other pressures put on various Irish governments in order to achieve this complicity.
Okay, so I noticed in the news that Ireland seems to also be moving towards PESCO a little bit. So wouldn't that be in the same kind of a
very much the
in
European
same
Army.
vein? Yeah.
It will be in breach of international laws and neutrality for Ireland, first of all, to declare, which it does, that it's a neutral state, but then to go and breach those laws of neutrality by becoming involved in military alliances like NATO and PESCO and a European army. And if a European army ever becomes involved in wars of aggression, which is likely, then we would be in breach of international laws and neutrality, and we would be destroying Irish neutrality.
And Ken, what is the obligation of Ireland if we're a neutral country and these types of flights are going through Shannon? What type of obligation? What should Ireland be doing?
Well, according to the Hague Convention, when belligerents in warfare are prohibited from transiting through neutral countries, when they do so, the neutral country is obligated to intern the aircraft, intern the people away from the area of belligerency and hold them until belligerency has ceased, so that by law they should be inspecting those planes, seizing any weapons that are being transported, taking the troops and interning the troops. That's what the Hague Convention requires.
I see. And Tarak, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'd like to see Ireland stand up. I'd like to see the Irish government reflect the basic will and wishes of the Irish people in affirming neutrality. I'd like to see Ireland be an example of a country that does not want to be involved in these horrific wars, which are causing huge problems. I mean, problems is not even the word for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, problems does not describe. We're talking about massive destruction of human beings, of the environment, of the planet itself by the U.S. war machine. And Ireland is becoming part of it. And this is a shame. This is a real shame. So I would like to see politicians and the Irish government take a stand, a stand that's based on integrity and based on really the will of most of the Irish people.
And so with this behavior, you could almost say that it's a bullying behavior. They're breaking the hearts of millions of people. They're destroying the families of millions of people. They're destroying everybody wants to be successful in their life, and these people can't even be successful because they're just being napalmed, and being destroyed. So would you say then that all this behavior by America and the fact that Ireland is facilitating that by the use of Shannon, do you think that's affecting the refugees that are coming across the Mediterranean and coming to Europe for shelter?
Very much so, and it is causing a flood of refugees who are being forced to leave their own countries, and thousands of them have been drowned in the Mediterranean. For a number of years, the European Union countries, including Ireland, were actually genuinely rescuing these refugees. For the last 18 months in particular, the European Union has now effectively stopped rescuing most of the refugees. They are letting some of them drown deliberately, in my view, and those that they are pulling out of the water, they are now sending back to Libya, where they are being put into effectively concentration camps, where they are being abused sexually.
Human trafficking
on a huge scale, and this has been done by direction of the European Union, of which we are a member. And Ireland, we did have some of our naval ships involved in rescue. Now, when they do put people out of the water, they are handed over to other ships and transported back to Libya. And again, that in itself is a crime, and it's against our obligations as an international state.
So obviously, we had an action at Shannon, and I from what it's obvious that the reason that you were arrested at Shannon is to bring attention to this matter. And how have you been treated by the Irish state?
Ken, why don't you answer?
Well, by the individuals involved, the people involved have treated us very well. The policy has not. That is, we were denied bail unjustifiably, in my view. So in that sense, we were ill-treated. But all of the Guard and the prison guards had treated us with respect and kindness and even, I'd say, friendship, so that relationships with Irish people have been heartwarming. And the fact that the system is directed in such a way that we are denied bail, we're denied our passports, we can't return home to await trial, we feel is unfair, but it's something we deal with as adults, and we're doing everything we can to continue to be effective in raising awareness of the Shannon and neutrality issue. So we've been, we have some large banners that we've been displaying in various places, hanging over bridges and so forth. We have some sandwich boards with information on them that we go, and we have pamphlets we hand out because we continue to try to spread awareness of the issue, which is what we were trying to do when we walked over the airport. And as long as they keep us here, we're going to keep doing that on Irish soil.
Fabulous. So has the since the story broke, has the media just been beating down your door to get to the story? Has 60 Minutes showed up because 2 Americans were arrested in Ireland, and everybody's outraged by the treatment, or how much what has happened in terms of the coverage of this story?
Well, the non-mainstream media has been in there a lot. Tarak was just interviewed on another radio program. We've lost track of the number of interviews we've had. Even the Irish Times interviewed us. The interviewer was very good. However, by the time the editors got through it, you wouldn't know there was a problem with Shannon and neutrality. Okay, all right. So it was a kind of a human interest story, but not so much covering the issue about the military flights. And I think you originally came with 8 people, and one of the ways that you know that the military is using those flights is because because you're 8 veterans, and 2 of the veterans that were in your group were actually on those flights previously and flew through Shannon. So they were able to verify that this is actually going on.
Through Shannon with their weapons.
Yeah.
And of course, it's particularly important, even from a media point of view, that it was 2 US citizens and 2 US veterans who were arrested and who went in to search this particular plane, and that has internationalized the issue, and it is international. From the Veterans for Peace point of view, we need solidarity and cooperation from an international perspective.
Yes, and so is there anything before we wrap up? Is there anything you would like to add? Anything that we've missed, or anything that we should cover?
Well, there's one thing I'd like to add, because I find it particularly poignant and tragic that some of those weapons and troops going are supporting the Saudi offensive in Yemen, where over 1 million people are on the brink of starvation, and that Ireland, with its historic experience with starvation, should be complicit in an offensive which is imposing that kind of starvation elsewhere. I find really heartrending. Absolutely, yeah.
And it's also important to emphasise on the issue of Irish neutrality, it's not negative neutrality avoiding our responsibilities. Since 1960, especially, Irish neutrality has been very positive. We've been involved very actively in UN peacekeeping. We have lost 88 soldiers who died on UN peacekeeping duties, and by abusing this neutrality, which our government is, I believe they are betraying those who died on UN peacekeeping. Ireland has always been a very proactive country from a point of view of international justice, development and international peace, and that has now been seriously endangered and almost ended by becoming involved with NATO, PESCO, European armies.
Yes. Well, I mean, from my experience, I don't think the politicians are actually going to do anything unless the people put pressure on the politicians. I mean, because if the politicians were genuinely interested in this issue, they would have acted on it already. And so the fact that it's getting to the point that you guys had to take desperate measures in order to highlight the issue, right? So from my point of view, I'm campaigning for citizen-initiated referendum, and which is a power we had in our first 32 county Dole Constitution, which is actually 100 years ago. In 1919 is when they ratified that Constitution. So we're 100 years out, and it was Article 28. And then when we had our 26 county Dole, Serstaat Aaron, it was Articles 47 and 48. And that power was, and that was in 1922. And when that power was removed in 1928 by Fine Gael's W.T. Cosgrave, and was never put back in. So Direct Democracy Ireland, the party that I'm campaigning for, wants to bring that power back into the Constitution so that we have that power in our voter toolbox to try to overrule the government on policies that we find oppressive to our freedom, our happiness, and our wallet. So I think by campaigning for that might be the tool that the people need in order to sort of put the government back into balance or more in touch with what the people want. And that's why I'm very interested in this issue, because what we need is the people to wake up and come together and to support you, support me, support us, so that we can go ahead and change this government in order to be more in line with what the people want. You know, a future that we envision for ourselves, our grandchildren, and for all of us.
And whether it's through citizen initiative or any other citizen movement, it all depends on mobilizing large numbers of people to get out there, because politicians will respond if there's a sufficient demand imposed by the people. Somebody once said, if you form a parade, politicians will be happy to get out in front of it.
Absolutely. They want all the photo ops. So, in a sense, in America, when you're paying taxes, you're actually paying for the military-industrial complex, which is waging war around the world. So that means that every American taxpayer is complicit in the wars that are being created. Here in Ireland, you're facilitating the military machine to fight foreign wars by landing at Shannon. So if Ireland doesn't want to be complicit with that, then they need to tell their politicians that they don't want it, and they need to redirect those flights. And you need to maintain your neutrality, right?
Just a question to you: what is your party's position, Direct Democracy, on the issue of Irish neutrality and on the issue of U.S. wars of aggression in the Middle East?
Well, I certainly don't support that. And if you go to my website, which is directdemocracy.ie, you'll find out that I actually say that you can use citizen-initiated referendum to maintain Irish neutrality and stop PESCO and stop all these wars.
Does your party, in particular, support Irish neutrality and oppose the wars of aggression?
Well, in our party, we don't have a party whip, so each individual is allowed to stand on their own particular policies. So my policy would be that. My policy is to bring citizen-initiated referendum back to the people, to put that power back into the Constitution, so that the Irish people can decide what they want. I'm simply a delivery boy to help facilitate that. Once the Irish people get that power, then the Irish people can decide for themselves. If the politicians don't want to do it, then the Irish people would have the power to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I just want to thank you guys for coming on the video. And then if you don't have anything else that you want to add, then we'll just end it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, cheers.
I hope this sounds